All right, welcome to each of you this evening on this unprecedented journey to support you in discovering your own yes energy and allowing the power that comes from being intentional in this area of your life to unfold in your life. We are talking about Laurel Langmeyer's latest bestseller, her fifth bestseller, in fact, and we are now in week 5 of an 8-week webinar journey. Tonight, we're going to be covering the information in chapters 10 and 11, touching on some of the content from chapter 12. We'll be doing more work in chapter 12 next week. So right now, I want to encourage you, grab your pen and paper. You always want to be an active player in your own learning, and especially when Laurel is sharing. Make sure you are in a quiet place away from distractions. This will serve you. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Live Out Loud's founder and CEO and the author of Yes Energy, The Equation to Do Less, Make More, and that would be the one and only Laurel Langmeyer. Good evening, Laurel.
Thank you. And here we are. Can you believe week 5 is upon us? And 3 more weeks. Plan on week 8 being big, 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 big. You should bring an entire journal, notebook, everything that you need. Actually, I'm just going to make this up and thank heavens that my team monitors these calls and takes notes. But what I'd encourage you to do is take all the homework that is up on those pages on the Find Your Yes Energy site, so findyouryesenergy.com. I would go to the book, and I'm okay. And I won't, sue you or do something ridiculous about, copying my pages. But it's okay if you, look through the inquiry pages or even put that thing on a copy machine and print it. And out of all of the inquiry pages in the book and all the homework we've given you, start figuring out for yourself, because each of you is so different. Start figuring out what should the action plan look like. Like what pieces would you put in? How would you put it in? Where are you stuck the most? We're going through each of the components of the equation very diligently. So where does it not make sense to you? So you've got to start doing some work. We aren't doing this Yes Energy work for you. We're guiding you to your plan. So just be prepared. So this is notification. Here we are on week 5 that on week 8, we're going to be putting together an action plan based on all the inquiries from the book. And then we'll put them into a proper sequence, which means you have to decide that. I'm not going to tell you, well, Susie, you should be doing this, and Sally, you should be doing that, and Sam, you should be doing that, and Brenda, you should be doing that. You have to decide what makes sense for you. And that's really where probably a one-on-one Yes Energy coach from Live Out Loud is going to make a lot of sense for you to help execute it, because we know humans and you know yourself, and being accountable is a tough thing. And, I love being accountable. I love living out loud. I love declaring stuff that is absolutely big, hairy, audacious goals, and saying that we're going to be a bestseller in 2 continents and then doing it and putting everything on the line. Because when there's not a plan B, Lisa Nichols always says there's not a plan B. There's non-negotiable goals is what I say. There's no back door, which is what, one of our students, Rich Anderson, said. There's no back door. You can't go backwards. You can only go forward. So when you live like that, you live in complete yes. So we said, and I said, when I declared this thing in 2011, that this book would be an all-time bestseller in America and Australia, we did whatever it took. And we didn't know how to get it all done. We knew how to do America, but not at the levels we've ever done. And we did not have a clue how to do Australia. So, what I want you to hear in that is not just, me saying, oh, yay, we did it. You really need to get, I live this every day. So, when you say to me through blogs or forums and different conversations, but you don't understand. You don't say yes, or you don't understand the degree that say yes, figure out how. I get sick to my stomach. I get nervous. I get sweaty. I panic. Yeah, I get it. And so when you live around yes people and you let yourself be held accountable, that's what coaching's about. Living out loud's about is I'm going to say this. I'm going to find the people who are going to help me get it done. And I'm going to live in that non-negotiable space. So all of you, welcome to the new place. That's possible if you want to take it on. And I can tell you once you take it on, you won't go back. I don't know anyone who's ever gone backwards once they've gone this far forward. So again, just acknowledge you. Here you are, week 5. You're taking this on. We are in part 4, which is honoring your gifts. We have talked about changing your conversation. We've talked about faith. We've talked about certainty. We've talked about confidence. We've talked about your dreams. And now it's gifts. Now, we're going to break this down into chapters 10 and 11 tonight, and I'm going to save chapter 12 for a standalone showcase next week, on week 6, which is the problem of perfect. because the problem of perfect will just resonate with so many of you. Because the problem of perfect is those of you who have to fulfill projects and products, and you have to fulfill before you sell, and everything's got to be perfect. You have to have your even office organized perfectly, and you don't even know how to do it right. Your accounting's got to be perfect. That's going to take another month. I mean, the problem with perfect is that you're broke. So we're dedicating an entire session to that. So stay tuned. That's going to happen in week 6. We'll wrap up all the other chapters in 7. If there's some remaining, like legacy chapters on the kids, because I end every book with kids. And then we'll go into a big action plan. So just so you know where we're going, we do know what we're doing, and I hope you're enjoying it. So last week's homework, chapters 7 through 9, is, how are you currently leading your life? Where do you feel confident and in control of the outcomes in various situations? Where are you feeling helpless and that you just don't have control? And the truth is, control is about a decision. When you don't feel control, it's because you've relinquished your power to someone. And I think for, like many of you women, I don't think you realize how much power you relinquish. And for you men, it's typically when you're in a job that you relinquish your power to another male boss, and you have no idea the damage that's doing to you, because you actually you're kind of unconscious that you did it and aren't aware of it. So just so you know, pay attention to that stuff. Where do you feel the needs and wants of others, and where that's creating a conflict in your own desires and your own goals? So what that really means is you're compromising. So you feel other people needing and wanting you. What happens to many, I know of you, as you're listening to this, you're thinking, oh, that's me, is because your whole day is busy as hell. All right? It's busy. I mean, you got so much to do. But the truth is, if you actually stopped, oh, this is a fun homework assignment, so Ken, take note. This is a good one. So how many of you ever spend a day and you never respond to the request of another person? I want to challenge you all to have a day where you don't respond to the request of anyone. All you do is drive your actions and results. Because that's what I do. I have an enormously fabulous team at Live Out Loud that takes the reaction and the response and the requests of all sorts of customers in the world. And I shouldn't say that I do it every day, because I clearly respond to customers. I have my own coaching clients. So I monitor that. But every day, my day, and the point for you is that is every day driven by what everybody else needs you to do, or is every day driven by what you need to do, your revenue producing activities? That's a good one. So just check that out for a day. I would love to challenge you, if you feel like your day is a responsive day to everyone else's needs, to just plan a day without any responsiveness. What would you do with yourself? That'd be an interesting day to have a conversation and coaching session about. How do you establish a routine for success every day? I think this is so big. So I shared mine. I think it's really important that you plan your day. What are your success principles you're going to commit your life to? So I have, 5, 6 of them that I do all the time. Everyone knows them. We don't have to repeat them now. And if you weren't on last week's call, go back and figure out what they are. The next one is complete the values exercise in the Yes Energy book. It's really important you prioritize your values and live in them completely. Now, does that mean that you aren't going to have some times in your life where you fall down? No, you're going to fall down. You're going to have some bumps in the road. And again, you just don't want to fall down very long, and you don't want it to cut you very deep. You just want to keep moving as I say as fast as you can, but as certain as you can, as confident as you can, and in the direction of your dreams. And then describe your ideal legacy was the last homework assignment. So what is the mark that you're looking to leave in the world? And, there's a lot of funny little activities like, design your tombstone and what you'd want everyone to say. And I have some students that are actually funeral directors, and now they're life celebration directors. And they actually have, doubled their revenue because they have sessions with clients designing their life celebration party, hence used to be known as funeral. I think that's hysterical. And people come and just party like superstars, just like the person would want them to do. So I think it's fun. So design the legacy. What do you want to leave behind, and what will people do? All right, let's jump in. Honoring your gifts, chapter 10, the talent within, excavating excellence from all types of energy. So here's what you got to know. It's in you, your makeup, who you want to be. Perhaps the conditioning and experiences have repressed these amazing gifts, but it's part of your creation. They're all there, and they're still yours. Just like Yes Energy, it's totally available to you. You just have to decide. It's a decision. Now, you can go to 7 years of therapy, or you just, coach with us, and in 7 minutes you decide. But everybody has skills. Everybody has talents. And, this work is based throughout all my work on the fact that I don't want you to go learn something new. I want you to do what you know how to do it with amazing brilliance and excellence, because you can. It's already a part of who you are. And I know that there's some of you that are older in your lives who say, well, I don't like my gifts. I don't like my skills. I don't like, I hear it a lot in the services space. I don't want to clean houses anymore. I don't want to be a bookkeeper anymore. I don't want to be a writer anymore. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. The truth is, you're darn good at it. And at this point in your life, you got 20, 30 years of amazing experience. So really, you're going to throw in the towel because you're just tired of it? This time, I would say keep what you got and start making some money and learn to be an entrepreneur and capitalize on it. Don't learn something new at this time in your life. So again, this isn't just new to Yes Energy. I preface that because it's always been what we've talked about in everything. When you attend our 3-day workshop where you're guaranteed to make that money, we say, go do what you already know how to do. And somebody else is already making $1 million, so it's your turn. So we're here to discover, uncover, use the gifts, share them with others, and remember, be in service of others. So many of you don't really know or really appreciate your gifts and really provide that service and that connection to your gifts. And more amazing is how many of you deny the gift because you're good at it. Like, as I say that, I always recall students, and students just kind of float through my mind because I've got so many cool experiences with the most amazing people. But there was this woman just recently in a cash machine who is a grandma. She's been a stay-home mom, and she raised a ton of kids. She was a nurse part-time, but she knows that she's really raised this amazing family. And I said, so what's your real gift? And she said, because I raised them to be spiritually grounded. And she says, and I want to be a spiritual coach. But the thought of being a spiritual coach, because it's a new title, scared the heck out of her. But it's been a gift that's been a part of her forever. And then to charge money when she thinks she should be giving it away for free, was just amazing to her. So, again, a lot of you deny them. You don't recognize them. They're there. Hello, pay attention. Why not? Because you can. And then there's some that because you don't get support of your gift, where judgment and criticize, the criticism of the people around you, you just stall yourself out. And that might be some of you. So again, I always give a lot of examples of the way things might have occurred, or occurring for you. And, owning those gifts and just knowing, really like that certainty and confidence conversation we just had last week, like that knowing, you just know. Because you can. And it's not from a place of arrogance, it's because you know. So what's the bigger game? Once you acknowledge your gifts, right? Once you really have that knowing and focus on what's possible with your gifts. And, some places to look is, go to the internet. I would say go to the internet and find people who have and do what you do and what's possible with them. I mean, it's extraordinary. The types of energy that I want to shift you to, because some of you, as we get into these next 2 chapters, are going to be quite stunned at the direction I took on the book and the space of energy, because I know a lot of you are thinking monetarily, and I speak to it very, very much from that standpoint. But there's a foundation below the skill sets, the knowing, the gifts, the knowledge that I think is essential for all of you. So when you base your gifts on a foundation like this, where you lead, direct, and have open energy, you're unstoppable. And I think this piece, when you get it, and it's going to take a little bit of practice and coaching for you to anchor yourself in this foundation, I would liken it to those of you who are running businesses that have proper entity and tax and banking structure, that have insurance, so your foundation is set for you to receive money at large levels. This is where your gift and your skills and your business and what you're up to in the world and those big, hairy, audacious dreams we talked about are going to be set on a foundation of a lot of these kinds of gifts. So it's a foundational conversation we're now entering. The gift of intention and conviction, right? It's revealed in many ways. So all of you have it. See, what you're all going to find is that at a certain level or a certain degree, as we speak about these kinds of foundational gifts, that you can lay down a skill set, you can lay down all sorts of knowledge on top of it in an entrepreneurial venture and create enormous cash, for those of you who want to, or create enormous health. And again, we're looking at all areas of your life. So I look at, those of you who want a new health goal, those who want a money goal, a relationship goal, any of a new physical environment goal. When you lay that down with intention and conviction, it's a very different possibility. So, I always say, I was the kid who spent endless hours, wondering, never accommodating others. I mean, not to the degree that some of you do, but the intention and conviction that I led my life, it'd be funny to interview my mother sometime when she actually reads my book. I asked her the other day if she went out and bought it, and she's like, "Oh, you have a bestseller again?" I'm like, "Oh, Mom, like, are you ever going to figure out what I do?" But it's kind of cute because she'd be the first to say, like, with my intention and conviction, if she knew we had a big farm day, man, I'd be the first one up. I would saddle my horse in my time, like even at 7 and 8 years old, I could barely even lift up the saddle. I would climb fences to figure out how to get that saddle on a horse, or I'd just skip it and go bareback. But man, I was out the door, intention, conviction, and I wouldn't come home till dark because I was not going to do those farm chores. So it'd be funny to interview my mother about my intention and conviction. It is such a deep level of who I am and what I do. And when I am very, very serious about something and very intent on it, it's unstoppable. And that's what I want to implore you. Like, it's available to you. All of you have it. You may not have exercised that muscle, but you all have that ability to be convicted and to be intentional about everything you have in your life. But I'm going to go back. I don't like that word, but. And you have to go back to, here's where I find the challenge. For those of you who don't have intention and conviction where it needs to be, to the level it needs to be, is because you still have the way it should be going on. You're still living by mom and dad's rules, by your family cultural rules. You're living by all sorts of interesting religious rules or whatever you're living by, but it's not yours. And so it's really difficult. I can tell you, it's really difficult to get intentional conviction, very convicted about things that aren't yours. So you really, if you've been watching along these couple weeks, you've got to clean it up. It is not an option for you to be kind of casual in that space. You got to clean up your rules. Like, who are you in the world? What do you stand for? So the intention and conviction can come forward. Gifts of empathy and emotion. So, some of you have resentment, sympathy, almost where you get so involved, and I'm speaking more probably to you women, with other people. You take on their negative or interesting energy when it's not about that. Like, empathy is seeing what's happening in someone's life and feeling it but not taking it on. And so having empathy and understanding and clearly being able to articulate emotions is something that many of you, believe me, that whole intuitive energy and feeling other people without taking them on is such an essential energy and a gift that you could grow that muscle, I promise. It's my ability, when people say my biggest gift, and I know it's one of my biggest gifts, is to have that intuitive, directive energy from stage. And when I turn up, I was just at a huge, huge international conference for an enormous company in the world. There are people from all over the world, and they said exclusively, hands down, there wasn't a speaker, there wasn't a person that could command the energy of the room more than you. And I know that. It's possible, and all of it's possible for you, but you have to be clear about your energy versus their energy, not take their energy on. Present engaged energy, that's a piece of it too. It's having that awareness. It's having patience. It's knowing, that life moves at its own speed, not necessarily yours. Now, the truth is, when you get intentional and conviction in your life, and you start having that awareness and patience, you will drive the speed that you want it to run at. Anyone around Live Out Loud knows we run at 200 miles an hour, right? I've used it as an example for years. I would say we run at 200 miles an hour. And if somebody wants to run at 100, it's okay, but it's not our train. And I think a lot of you, where you have to really watch the saboteur of that energy, is that you slow down, you accommodate, and you compromise for others who can't move as fast. And then what happens is your result, and I know I keep using money as a result, but it's in health, it's in all sorts of areas of your life, that you compromise, slow down, and adjust for others, and then give up your goal. So you got to really pay attention to that. Now, the next energy that I talk about in the book is sensitive energy, and level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1, level 2, level 3 is really work that was done by Henry Kinsey House, who was one of my first and most extraordinary coaches of the world, Laura Whitworth. They wrote this great book called Coactive Coaching. All of our coaches, and by the way, those of you on the call that are becoming Yes Energy coaches, it will be a required reading. But in that book, they speak of level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 1 is a conversation, back to the first piece of the equation, that has got to be managed. Some of you have level 1 conversations that are just chaotic, they're noisy, it's reactive, it runs and runs and runs. It's interesting how many people that outwardly have no results in their life, or very little results in their life, but have, are moving at 200 miles an hour at a level 1 critic of themselves and the world and judgment. So level 1 has to be managed at a very, very deep level. Level 2 is a conversation and a connection that is with one other person. Level 3 is about seeing and understanding and feeling a large space. So whether it's a stage, whether it's, where if you say go to a church, you go to a mall, you go to a business meeting, and you can feel this and like embrace the room. That's level 3. It's this larger intuitive energy that when you tap that, your entire result will shift. And it's what I teach with all of you coaches. I teach it with highly successful people. Is live at level 3. Live it away at a space that's beyond you. And then when you start dreaming beyond you, when you start living life beyond you, you'd be shocked what shows up in the space. Now, the gift of compassion. Gracious acts of compassion are undervalued. One of my dearest friends went to Tibet, which very few people have the privilege to be at Tibet, and actually at the with the Dalai Lama and at that, facility and that space. And I have the most amazing original Tibetan wristband, bracelet, which is the gift of compassion. Because I think it's a gift that doesn't force arguments. It at some point has to be coupled, I think, to be done well with intuition. Like knowing where you can be compassionate and, again, not taking on their energy, but understand someone else's life, open up the possibility of what's going on, understand that they've had tough times and other people have tough times, be compassionate with yourself, which is just understand the flow of life. And this one's going to take a while. I think this one could be an 8-week series by itself because it's pretty sophisticated. It takes some time to really anchor in to what it means and understand. Because what I find with a lot, and I'm going to speak to more women, is that you get sympathetic and almost martyr-like with people versus just understand, be empathetic, compassionate, never take on another person's energy. Now, let's get to some fun electric energy, which is the gift of charisma. So the gift of charisma is fascinating. Way back in the first page of the book, I talked about my friend Diana and I was saying you have the gift. And I think way back in the day, and I look back, after writing this book and all these years later, the gift of charisma in that gift, I think we really, I have to be honest, say in 2001, 2, and 3, we would think that not everybody has it. I think everybody has it. I don't think it's exercised at all. And I think many of you, you're embarrassed by your charms, your what I call idiosyncrasies, the funny things you do that you might think are odd to the world. You might be embarrassed about, so you hold them back. When people, turn up to a big table or to one of my workshops and they speak a different language or have a different dialect, or they have some difference, right? Which I think we all have differences, but they're trying to hide a difference, is where they bury their gift of charisma. I want you to bring it forward. I want you to include it in the conversations you're having and just be a part of it. Just have it be a part of who you are and bring it graciously forward. Now, determined persistent energy gets into the gift of endurance. And I have to say, watching my father pass away, I always wondered why I was so physically strong. And anyone who's been around me, they'll say, I don't know how you do it. And I say, I think this German blood from my father. But the gift of endurance, which I always say in the book, if you made it this far, you have endurance. The first 18 years alone take a lot of grit and determination just to get through school, academia, social, just get growing up. Right? And so the gift of endurance is really about, I think, getting very clear. And those of you who have the bigger endurance in your life, it's because you're clear about who you are. You're clear about that confidence we're talking about. You're clearer than someone else listening to this call. And it's not that you're better or worse. It's not that I am. But endurance it's a conditioning program. And, I think a lot of you know that I say you got to pay attention, you got to get in shape. And that means in all areas of your life. So this isn't just the physicality of endurance. It's your ability to stay in a conversation for hours and hours and hours. It's your ability to comprehend and process complex problems and not get into the emotional state. I think the biggest thing we coach around Live Out Loud is everyone's emotional state, because they won't write a plan down. They don't write a wealth plan down. They don't write a business plan down. And they're running business emotionally, and they wonder why things don't work. So it's getting in shape in all those areas. Now, sure, genuine energy comes from the gifts of authenticity and straightforwardness. Now, if you're thinking about all these gifts that I've been, speaking of, you have to be realizing that I'm speaking about what all of you can put on your tool belt, you can be more of, and it's not something unique to me or one person on the call. It's not about being a teacher or a tutor or a doctor. It is about you embracing the very, very and most amazing gifts of your entire life and putting them on a foundation where you are in the highest values. You're living authentically. You're living compassionately. You're living with empathy. You're living in enormous ways that people will always be attracted to. You're bringing your charisma to the forefront, whatever that looks like for you. I think a lot of, I would say many of you need to caution, or I'll caution you to think that the way you do it has to be done my way. And it's not. You do it my way, that's the wrong way. It's not authentic to you. It has to be done your way. Okay? So, the gifts of imagination and resourcefulness. Now, where I find that the gifts of creativity and innovation and energy, for me, drastically changed. I mean, drastically. I mean, I can just remember the time, is in my 20s. And the reason it changed is because I changed the people I lived with. So I remember going to some of the most extraordinary personal development work, a 10-day women's leadership class on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and we literally lived in bunkhouses with there was hardly any electricity. I mean, we sure in heck didn't get up and do our hair and put makeup on any day. We did intense physical activity. It was like a breakdown camp, and it wasn't S. So those of you that are thinking, but it was like that. It was crazy. I mean, but life changing. And then I went on this whole journey of being mentored by some of the most extraordinary mentors who wouldn't tolerate anything but creativity and innovation. So some of you may be like I was, which is you got to get in the space, because that's not how I grew up. I mean, I remember envying, right, from that ego place, thinking, God, how is it that people think of all these good ideas and have these amazing businesses and they can create all this money? And it just didn't occur to me at all. It was just so foreign to the way that I was brought up. And the imagination and resourcefulness and that saying yes and figuring out how, which is driven by that confidence, I can promise you your fastest path to it is to be in the presence of people who live like that. And it's the agenda of Live Out Loud. It's why we're here. It's why we're available to you. We want you to be a part of it. We want you to see. And the more you're around it, I can promise you the more you're around it, the more it's just going to become contagious and a part of who you are. Now, within all of that, I talk about humble, quiet energy and the gifts of principles and gratitude. I would also say with grace and ease, and just, finding that. I'm a huge fan of gratitude journals, and there's a place where you all have to be quiet within yourself. So I know many of you I probably just put the stop break on. You say, well, you say live out loud and do this and be accountable and da-da-da-da. But there's got to be some space of silence, of knowing that you come home to. I know that it's why I live in Tahoe. There's nothing more grounding and humble and amazing to live in the majestic mountains and the most pristine lake. And, my whole house is surrounded, with acres of, granite, massive granite monuments, that can only be created by higher power. So there's no way to wake up and not have gratitude and awe of all of that. So that's how I do it. You got to find your space to have all these energies, because they're there. And when it just becomes who you are, your yes energy is just going to bleed through. To every other, skill set. Now, motivating, inspiring, contagious energy, that's the caring, the nurturing. It's, I know a lot of you say, well, I'm intimidated by you and you're so intense. Yeah, I am. But the truth is, there's a caring, nurturing that our entire company of Live Out Loud does with and for you to help you become who you need to be, whether it's Yes Energy coach, to now, looking at all areas of your life. But really, we're still circling you around back to that, career, personal development, and money. Because, I love, Dan Kennedy, who we're working with as one of our coach and mentors very closely this year. He said, having a lot of money solves all the problems that having no money, created. So it's just true. Now, there's a whole bunch of inquiries and a whole bunch of homework I just gave you, and I really want you to go through each of these gifts in each of these areas, because it's a big chapter. It's a huge chapter, and for some of you, who haven't known me in this capacity are probably reeling and saying, oh my gosh, look at all these things she talks about. But I know I live every piece of those things. Do I live them, perfectly and, 100% every time, every minute? No, but they're deeply, deeply rooted. So it's not like I have to get up and say, okay, I'm going to be compassionate today. I'm going to have gratitude today. It's just what happens. So I want you to, if you can, just pull them out of the book, put them in a journal. Maybe grade yourself on, how you doing on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 meaning, oh, I live this all the time and it's just who I am. And, a 1 being, I got a lot of work or just thinking to do. Because it's really not like you're going to develop it. It's already in you. You just have to bring it to the forefront. But give yourself a score and then write down some actions that could put it present in your life every day. Like what could bring it forward that would have that be a part of who you are, what's possible for you. Now let's move to chapter 11. This one was fun to write. Leveraging your libido and every other living thing. And, your libido is not just sexual energy. It's your overall physical energy. It's your physicality. And I dug in deep, into the Napoleon Hill work because, he talks about sexual transmutation. He talks about the libido a lot in Think and Grow Rich. And given that I've been a huge fan of the Napoleon Hill work and the Institute, and I've been at their all sorts of anniversaries, and I was at their 100-year American anniversary. Now I'm going to their 75th international anniversary. I just really dug into it because I don't think anyone writes about it. No one has the guts to talk about it. And I thought, well, I'm the live out loud girl. I'm going to bring that straight away. So chapter 11 is about leveraging your libido. I also have an amazing recording that will pop over, and if those of you want to get it, we'll give you a great discount on that product. But we recorded a product on leveraging your libido and what that really means. And here in the book, we go into even more depth about it. But I have a great product called Leveraging Your Libido for Yes Energy that was given as part of the book launch. So we'll give a great discount to those of you who want to see me live and talk more about it. But really, it's all the free gifts in life. It's the gift of water. It's the gift of food and drink and how you handle and manage that, and everyone's body's so different. I think most people live absolutely dehydrated, so I talk a lot about water. I talk a lot about that just in your physical activity. The gifts of physical activity and stamina. It's crazy making for me. And I know there's some of you on the calls that might have different handicaps or different things and, whatever your situation is. But there is absolutely not one of you, I don't care what your situation is, that can't sweat, that you can't get out and move at some level, that can create, mental activities around it, and increase your stamina. I always say, I can speed read and I have an enormous memory, but I did very, very diligent schooling in those categories during college, mainly because I wanted to play, and I was kind of a wild little thing, you can imagine. And so reading journals after journals and journals of all sorts of finance books was hardly the thing I was going to do on a Friday and Saturday night. So I learned to speed read and memorize. So basically I could party like a superstar in college. So let's just say what's so. I don't think I wrote about it like that in the book, but there you heard it. My mother would attest to it. But man, I got great grades in school. And so I increased my stamina mentally and through speed reading as part of that. So, it's not just physical, it's your brain. You got to keep your brain engaged. People who live the longest keep their brain engaged. The gift of the great outdoors. Obviously I live here in Tahoe, the most amazing place. Before I lived here, I lived in San Francisco, actually north of San Francisco in Sausalito and out by the water. So be outside. Oxygen's an amazing gift that I think we underutilize it because, so many of you don't breathe, actually. I didn't even talk about breathing enough. The gifts of travel and culture. I don't think I even appreciated this as much, which is I brought it to the book until I had a business in Australia. And, the folks that I bring to Australia from America, we're so casual here in America. When you go to Australia, I don't care how many generations, they still honor their home country. So even if they've been there for 2 or 3 or 4 decades, the family, they'll say they're German descent. And literally, the cultures live together. There's Lebanese groups, there's Pakistani groups, there's German groups, there's Italian groups, there's Greek groups. They live as cultures around town and are they take on languages. Many of them know 2, 4, 6 languages. So for those of you who have never really appreciated or respected, because I know I never did. So I'm not making anybody wrong or saying that, what you need to do. I'm just saying it's possible. And the awareness that I've had, having been there and now traveling all over the world in different, places, it's an enormous gift. And it's a gift to give your kids. It's also probably why I amplified my gift of travel and taking my kids to all 7 continents before they're 18, because that experience will be what's next is the gift of an education and experiences of a lifetime. And I think it's interesting how many, in America, again, I got to pick on Americans. I think the number's only 17% even have passports. And I know because I grew up in a place where I wasn't even on an airplane. My first airplane ride was 16 or 17 years old. I mean, we drove everywhere. So getting on a plane was like just shocking. But I think there's a lot of people who just love their routine. And if you're one of them, I'm going to challenge you to stop that same old routine every day, put in your success behaviors, and create a new experience. Create your bucket list. What do you want? Go have fun and experiences with people who want to have experiences. The gift of other people. I think that a lot of people don't respect other people or honor what they can provide in their life because they're too different. And the cultural what I call discrimination is stunning to me. I think too many people have all sorts of lines around that. So there you go. There's my pedestal of all those pieces. So chapter 11 is very challenging. I think that I've challenged a lot of norms. I know I do. I don't see color, race, religion, sexual preference, or any of those things. And to raise your children in that way, and I could have just offended a bunch of you, and now you're hanging up because you're like, well, I do, and I'm this, and I'm that. That's fine. I'm not judging if you are. I just know there's possibility to just check it out, is what I'm saying. Just check it out before you make a rule. And is the rule really yours? Again, I go back to whose rules do you live by? Are they yours, or are they ingrained from a different place? And some of you may not even know. And I can't wait to hear the aha moment. I was with someone recently at the conference, and I really took him on, challenged him 20 minutes. 20 minutes wasn't even really coaching. I was challenging him. And he kind of left going, well, that's just not possible. And everything wasn't possible. And he came up to me the next day, and he was very intent. His energy was very clear. And I knew that he had read the book. And he just hugged me, and he said, oh, my gosh. He said, that 20 minutes changed my life. Not only am I going to be a millionaire this year, I'm going to sign up for your mentoring program. I'm going to come to this community. I'm going to change the way I'm behaving with my children. I mean, just has a whole plan in his head. So just be open to possibilities is how I'd leave that. So I'm going to leave you with a lot of thought. A lot of thought. This isn't like this is, deep, oh, my gosh, I got to change things. But it is, I got to make some decisions. Is this really who I am and what I want? Because knowing who you are and standing in that knowing is what's going to create that confidence. And so a lot of the gifts that I bring forward aren't like the gifts you're going to read about in any other book because they're all available to you. Everybody has the availability, especially leveraging your veto. Everybody can do any of these things. It's totally up to you to choose to have them and do them in your life. So with that, I'm going to leave you there, and we will be putting up the homework on findyouryesenergy.com, but I want to bring in some questions as we always do. And Dawn, I'm sure you got questions out there.
We do, Laurel, and just kind of dovetailing off of what you were talking about a moment ago, Jason in San Angelo, Texas. Coming from a military background, I find there has been a lot of, in quotes, programming of my thinking that helps me in the military, but not so much in the civilian world. How can I stay, and again, this is in quotes, Laurel, wired tight with discipline and accomplishment and goal achieving, and at the same time really get tuned into my own yes energy? It's feeling like a bumpy ride. That's Jason.
So I got to understand the question. So it's how does he develop yes energy staying in a military world?
Yes, that's basically it, because so much of it is he's talking about programming and his military programming.
God help you is what I would say first. So you're in one of those categories. Engineers kind of get in that category where there is such deep programming to what it takes to do what you had to do to be in the military, to be an engineer. I almost put doctors in that category. So when you're in a place where you have that regimen, it has to be that tight, and you've been literally programmed. And I know to the degree you've been programmed because I have, friends that have been, deep intelligence. First of all, I think living a dual life is very tough. What I do believe is that you can straddle, because we have a whole initiative called serveoutloud.com where we want to help you sort that out. But if you're straddling and you're deep in that program and you're deep in that structure, then surround yourself in our community of Live Out Loud. Because when you're in that, it might take you a little while to get more assimilated to the fact that we say yes and figure out how. And as one of my lieutenant colonels said to me one day so eloquently, he said, well, that's really cute. But you're asking someone who's been highly trained to triple, quadruple check the back, your parachute, to say yes and hope to God some other idiot did it for him. That's never going to happen. So the perfection, the making sure that every I's dotted and T's crossed is what I know that you're trained to do. So how do you start being more open to the possibility? The only answer I would give you is you got to spend time in the environment of which we live, the wild entrepreneurs like us live, and you've got to start just exercising it, in certain spaces. So some spaces that I know some of the military folks do is they take on their physicality in a different way, they take spirituality on a different way, and they start generating money with their family, which, we find many of them tend to be broken, is start generating a family business where you can see more possibility and creativity. So you got to just put some of these new creative spaces in your life for that opportunity. That's what I would say about that.
Fantastic. Here's Jerome from Rochester, Minnesota. I love how much you focus on serving others. It is also interesting the way you talk about the gift of intention and conviction. In the past, I think I felt the two cannot occupy the same space. I think he's talking about intention and conviction versus serving others. And now I'm getting that they can. So please say more about the apparent conflict between the gift of intention and conviction and that of serving others, and how we can do both.
Oh, because I don't think there's any conflict. I think that's cute how you have that all wired. It's all tangled up. So I'd unwire that whole thought, because I think the intention and conviction in anything that you're doing, if you get up in the morning and love what you're doing, the words I always add is you can love what you're doing, but it better be in the service of others. So when you, like we do Live Out Loud for the service of others, not just because we, get up and need something to do. We do it because we are serving other people. And we do it with intention and conviction. So I think you've got to rewire that whole thought, and you got to put it together in a complete sentence. So how in service of others do you have intention and conviction for your life, right? Because that's what your life's really about, is serving other people. So I'd rewire that whole baby. Does that make some sense?
Excellent. Yep. Great answer. Karen in Boise writes, the information on listening I found very helpful. I am doing a great job of implementing true level 3 listening. The problem is the people I am speaking with are not. How can I encourage level 3 listening in others to take the communication exchange to a whole new level? There's a great question from Karen in Boise.
I would say that it's consistent. And it's consistent feedback. So you're consistently going to give feedback to those and that are level 1. So first of all, just bless your soul, you're still having those conversations, because most people become highly intolerant and move on from the conversations of that, what I call that baby conversation. It's intolerant. So the fact that you're still in the toleration is quite amazing myself. And it's not that you're dissing people. You're saying, well, you're just not good enough, or any of that kind of dramas. But what it is, it's coaching them gently. When people are in level 1 conversations with me, and again, that collective coaching book is going to be such a communication tool for many of you who really take this on. So the things I would say is, so what's the point? Could you be clear? And if you could describe the end, what is it? You really have to guide at a lot of levels that most of you aren't used to guiding. And and then not tolerating. You know, some of the level 1 conversations that some of you tolerate is people who tell the same damn story that you've been listening to for the last 3 years. They don't have any other stories to tell. Who cares? Do you have any new stories to tell? The only reason they tell old stories, they have nothing new in their life to talk about. So a lot of it's you. You have to decide how you're going to be in that space. And I would say get a whole new batch of people, too.
Excellent. You've struck a chord with this charging money for one's gifts, Laurel. So Dave sums it up pretty well in Morrisville, North Carolina. He says, Laurel, the charging money for using my gifts has been a challenge for me. I really do see that I can be both spiritual and helpful, serving others, as you say, and also be paid for it. Thank you very much.
Well, it's about time, and don't ever go back. About time.
All right. We've got Stephanie one more. Stephanie in San Diego. I know how important intuitive energy is. Sometimes I feel like I'm being so intuitive and feeling, but don't have enough of the nuts and bolts energy of getting things done. Is there a conflict between the two, or is it just me?
It's just you. I think So say that the two parts again of the.
She's conflicted here because she's very intuitive, and she says she feels being so intuitive and feeling, in quotes, but not having enough of the nuts and bolts energy of getting things done. Those are her words.
Well, and again, I think a lot of women have that challenge. Even so, I'm glad that a woman asked the question. It's about the dream. It's about the bigger, what are you doing? That has to be very, very clear in your life. Like, you've got to know what it is you want, how you're going to get there. And then this is the do less, make more. You also have to be really clear that you're going to stop doing half the things that you believe you should be doing. You're not good at them. So you can be in that feely, touchy space. But I would ask you over and over and over, how much cash is in that space? And there's usually not a lot of cash. But in that same token, there's a lot of doing that you're doing that is a bunch of noise, level 1 stuff, that you're no good at and shouldn't be doing that either. So I think it's a combination of some of that that you really got to get clear about. Hire the right people. You get focused on the doing that does produce the results. And it's okay to be feeling and compassionate. I mean, that's what we're talking about. But you also have to have that boundary and balance that you're getting results. That's what I would say about that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
So I think you all have an enormous amount of homework. Like, this is a big one, and it's different, and it's a base foundation for how Yes Energy lives. And I think many of you are going to realize you're just free yourself up so much when you really have this foundation of ease and grace in your life. And I want to welcome you to it. So go back to findyouryesenergy.com. Get your homework done as soon as you can. And we'll be back next week. Again, next week is the problem with perfect. I love this chapter. I love this work. And many of you who have been, really right here in this work with us know that it is a big, dang problem because you're not going to be perfect. So good luck with that and stop it.